Hello, everybody, and welcome to this afternoon's webinar. Thank you, everyone, for everyone who's joining us live. I know this was a very short notice webinar, so it's great that you're able to join us. And I know lots of you will be watching this back on a recording as well. So if you'd like to introduce yourself in the chat windows, the session is going to be quite interactive, so I'm going to be asking lots of questions and some of your thoughts and opinions. I can't see or hear you, but I can read all the messages in the chat, so it'd be great to know who we've got joining us today. Before we get started, as I know some people are still joining, just a few of the basics. So the session is being recorded. It will be sent to you after with the slides and lots of information and things as well. So I'll be covering lots of different things, and some of the resources and some of the text on the slides, I'm sure some of you will want to go away and use. So you'll have access to all of those after the session. I've also put my name and email address at the bottom. If you've got any questions after, please feel free to contact me directly. The session, we've got an hour. It's about 45 minutes, and then we've got the rest of the time for questions and then sharing any of your thoughts as well and ideas. I'm very happy to hear about you and what you're currently doing in school. Thank you very much. So I can see the chat. So you can either set your chat window to message just me, or you can set it to message everybody, and then everyone can see each other's. It's up to you who you would like to see your messages. So we've got Phoebe, hi Phoebe, and Andrea, and Natalie that are joining us, and John. Hi to you, John. And Sophie. That's great. That's lovely. And Matthew. So we've got people from all over the UK joining us today. That's great. So today's session is it's a brand new session that we've done. So it's the first time we've done it. So I'm really interested to hear your thoughts as well and what you're currently doing. It's always a good learning opportunity for us. But we're looking at bridging home and school. So how Pitch News can spark conversations with parents and how you can utilise the resources best with home. And I've got lots of I spent a long time when I was preparing this webinar, looking through lots of different schools' websites and social medias and looking to see what schools are doing already. So I've got some really good examples to show you as well as we're going through the session. So in terms of what we're going to cover, we're going to first of all do a really quick overview of Picture News. I know we've got a mixture of people that have been using Picture News for a long time and people that are quite new to Picture News. So I'm just going to do a real whistle-stop tour to the resources and how you might use those, and then that will link into how you might use the resources to support homeschool learning and those links as well. Then we're going to look at how Pitch News works. So which parts of the resource that you might want to share with families and parents and carers at home. Practical ideas for how you'll do that and how it can work both ways as a partnership. And then we're also going to do a Q&A session. So if you've got any questions, you can either type them in the Q&A section or you can type them in directly into the chat. And again, you can send them just privately to me, or you can send them to everyone so everyone see them. So just before we get going, it'd be really useful for me to know what your current experience of Picture News is. So what do you currently do with Picture News in school? And if you're new to it, or if you're trialing Picture News at the moment, that's absolutely fine. Just let me know in the chat window, and it gives me a bit of an idea of the different experiences that we have from different schools. So Sophie says they have a weekly Picture News assembly. That's great. Eric says in classes, so we have a 20-minute slot every week where all classes look at it together. Andrea says we use it as a weekly class assembly, including EYFS. Sue says from Inman's Primary, weekly assembly. Matthew says we use Pitch News. Our Monday assemblies use a stimulus for discussions and debates. That's great. And then Natalie says weekly class assembly and then captured in floor books. So great. So I'll mention some of the ways that you might record some of your ideas as well. And then Gail says brand new to it, going to use it for Key Stage 1 and 2 assemblies after Christmas. So welcome, Gail, and I hope you find this session really useful. So we'll get going. Thanks. That's really useful to know a little bit more about how you're using it currently. And then we've got using it in our lessons timetabled. Thank you very much for sharing that. So as I say, what I'm going to do is a really quick overview of the resources and what's in your pack. If you've been using it in a particular way, so I know lots of you mentioned assemblies, you'll probably have a regular set of slides that you might use. It might be 8 slides that you use every week. It might be a different way. And I know, oh, someone's just said these are also as a whole school display. So maybe a what's happening in the world display as well that you can change. The reason why the news is really good, not just for your assemblies and for using it within school, but also for your homeschool links, is because the issues that it covers are so varied and so different, and they're such big stories and things that you can cover. So they've just got the news covers political, social, moral, environmental, different cultures, and the format that Pitch News is in is very inclusive and very friendly to share with parents. So you can share I know lots of schools will print the poster and send that home with some of the notes and things. And I'll talk a little bit more about how some schools are sharing it in a second. But there's lots of different ways that you can share the resources and to encourage some of those conversations to continue at home. And the Pitch News Take Home, which I'll talk about a lot throughout the session, which is the main slide that you're probably most likely to share with parents. That was actually added on. So when we first made Pitch News as a weekly assembly news resource with the slides, that wasn't included. And we had so many people saying, this is really great, we're doing a weekly assembly, and I really would like the children to continue some of those conversations at home. And some people said they'd had parents coming in and saying, oh, they've learned about this. What did you cover? What news topic was it? So it was really good to be able to have something that they could send home or share with parents. So it was a really popular edition, and it was one of our first changes and tweaks that we made when we first started the resource. So in terms of the pack, as I say, I won't spend too long on this. I know a lot of you will be really familiar with the resources. So every Friday we email you your new Pitch News pack. We email it on a Friday, generally, so you've got a little bit of time to look at it before the week ahead. And I know lots of people use it as their Monday assembly to sort of start the week off. The first slide is always to the picture. So it's this slide here on the top left. And then the next slide is the picture and the big question. So the question is quite in the style of philosophy for children. It's quite open-ended. It's always a big question. And the idea really is if you are using Pitch News for a whole school assembly, that question can be accessed by really much younger children or older children. You'll get a very different response, but they're able to access the question. We then have information about the story. And just before I go any further, you are more than welcome to share any of your Pitch News slides with parents. So there are particular ones that we would recommend, but if you would like to just share the question and the poster, or if you'd like to share the question, the poster, so slides 2 and 3, so the parents have got that information and print that off, that's absolutely fine. We're more than happy for you to do that. So that has the text about the story and then links as well. So as well as printing the resources to send home, lots of our schools will add bits of them to the website. So you can have the links so parents can access the hyperlinks as well, which can be really useful. How does it make me feel as well can be a really powerful slide. And that again might be something. I've got a letter that I'll show you that you can send home to parents. You can adapt and send home. I will send it as a Word document after the session. But what you can do is some of the resources, like how does it make me feel, you might want to send at the start of the year with an introduction to Picture News, and then parents can have a copy of that, and then when they're talking to children about the news, they could sit and look at the feelings, words together, and then discuss how it makes them feel, and talk to each other as well. One thing that I always think is really good, really advantageous about using Picture News with parents is that you can get a different generational perspective. So if children are able to ask maybe grandparents or even their parents are a very different generation, will have a very different perspective on the news and what's happening than their peers might in the classroom that they're sat next to and that they're friends. So that can be really powerful for that. Lots of other things, a lot of these lend themselves for displays. So the world map is another great one. And for your floor books as well, if you're wanting to print them each week and have lots of world maps for how you use it, can be really useful. Media literacy. This was a relatively new edition for Picture News. Again, this is one that you might want to share with parents or have it on your website or on your newsletter. because it's a really good one. It's got it's almost a slide that you can use in its own right. So there's questions to discuss, a reflection, and an activity as well. So that slide can be a really powerful one if you want to send it home, or as I say, add on your newsletter as well. British values, protected characteristics, and UN rights of a child. Schools use these very differently. Some schools who are really focusing on British values or using Picture News to show how British values are embedded in school might use this every week and have a big focus on it. So it might be printed every week as part of a display, or again printed in floor books. It might be, I know lots of schools, before they get to this slide, will ask the children which of the British values they think this links to, and then they can have a think about it and then make a prediction that can really help solidify children's understanding of what they are. Likewise with protected characteristics, again, that's a really good one to show that you are discussing them and you're giving them a real life context of something that's happening in the world around us. UN rights of a child, particularly useful if you are working towards the Rights Respecting Schools Award, because again, it's just showing real life examples of how the UN rights of a child fit in our everyday lives and in the wider world. So those slides are for that purpose. Spotlight, again, this is a really, really useful one to print and send home. And I know some schools do this every week. So Spotlight is it's almost, well, it is separate really from the main resource. So it's a standalone child-friendly newspaper that you can print off and you can send home, you can add to your newsletter. Lots of people use it for guided reading. It can be used in lots of different ways. Take home, this is probably the main one that our schools use to share with parents about the Picture News story that week. So this was our original edition when we had lots of people asking if they could share the resources at home. So this again is a standalone slide that you can print, add to your newsletter. Some people I know just copy and paste a screenshot of it at the bottom of their newsletter every week, just so parents can see what that Picture News assembly was about. And then they may choose to discuss it. You may periodically, if it's a story that particularly resonates with the children in your community or your families, you might want to print it out as a standalone sheet or put it on highlight it on your website or your shared learning area and direct parents to it. And it could be a homework or something that you have a little bit more emphasis on. So what's included in that? So we've got the image and the big question. So you've got that on there. The summary of the news story, 2 or 3 things to discuss, to talk about at home, a space for notes. So if you did want to do it as a homework, you could add those comments there. And then at the bottom, and this is another way that you can work with parents, and it's something that people who've been using Picture News for a really long time aren't familiar with, our discussion board. So that link everybody can access. So picture-news.co.uk/discuss. That will take you to our discussion board where children can add their own comments and reflections to the big question and share them. And you can scroll back and see past weeks and past comments that can be shared as well. So that can be a great use of for sharing the stories and the questions at home. And as I say, you don't need to log into that. Yeah, Andrew's just asked for the link. I'll type it into the chat for you. So it's our website. So it's picturenews.co.uk/discuss. And then on that page, I've just copied and pasted it into the chat. You can add that to your newsletters. You can add that to your website. On that page, the front of it will always have the current week's Picture News. Something else on there that's really useful, again, for sharing with families, is there's a link to the virtual Picture News. So our 10-minute teacher-led Picture News recording that week. So you could let parents know that that's there so they can share that. So you can share that with them and then they can watch that and then add comments and they can see. We always choose 8 or 9 comments from children and they can see if their comment's been selected or they can read the comments of other children. So that website is used in schools as well. So you can use it in the classroom. Children can type in their comments if you've got tablets or laptops that children are using, they could do that. Or I know lots of schools do it as a class. So you might have, if you've got a couple of different opinions, you might add a couple of comments. But whilst you're sat there, you might scribe and then submit some of the comments. And then when you start your next Picture News, you can see if anybody's comments have been selected. It can be really useful for that. So that's the take-home document, as I say, and the Spotlight, which is our newspaper. So these three are probably, well, these two, the Spotlight 1 and 2, but you can have it as one newspaper, and then the take-home are probably the ones that you'll use the most as standalone documents. And if you go to our website and log into the online area, and again, once I've emailed you the slides, if you're not sure what your username and password is, just email me and I can help you access the online area. But in our online area are all of the past packs of Picture News. And something that's really useful is we have all of these files, so the take home, the Spotlight, and the different parts of the resource as individual PDF files. So when we email you your Picture News resource every week, it comes as a PowerPoint. But on there, on the online area, you'll see them as PDFs, which can be really useful, particularly if you're wanting them just to add them to a newsletter or to add them to a website. I know lots of schools will just take the PDF take home and just have a list of them so parents can and just save them on their website and parents can go and access those and utilise those in that way. Oh, what's that? So in terms of how to use your pack, this is just a summary slide. And if you've been to the Welcome to Picture News training, you'll have seen this slide before. But just to give you some ideas, alongside, obviously, we'll come to how you'll get the most out of using it with parents. But in schools, these are some really good ideas for how you might utilise them. So I know some of you, lots of you said assemblies. Debating clubs is a good one, and nurture groups. So if you've got any speaking and listening interventions, or children learning English as an additional language, it can be really useful for that with the visual elements of the resources and the big questions and the fresh content each week. So it can be utilised in that way as well. Speaking and listening skills, after school clubs or lunchtime clubs. Lots of schools have a Picture News club that you can utilise. Displays, so you can see there's a couple of examples of displays that you might change. Sharing children's views to a wider audience. So, for example, on X or Facebook, and I'll share some more examples of that later. Lunchtime discussions, so you might print out the Spotlight and have them on tables. Then I know someone mentioned floor books, so you might want to print out some of the work and some of the children's thoughts and utilise those in that way. So there's some of the different ways you might use your pack. And Sarita says, we want to get our parents involved more in Picture News. Have you got a standard letter? Yes, I have. So I will come to the letter. I've got an image of the letter, which I'll share on screen as part of this presentation. And then I will also email you the Word document of it after this session. And then if you want to change it or personalise it for your school, you can do that. So in terms of why homeschool connections matter, so I've got a quote here from the National Literacy Trust and then some of our thoughts and opinions. Essentially, children remember more when the discussions continue beyond school. So if they're able to, and it can give the children a lot of confidence, if they've learned a lot about a Picture News story and they understand the topic, when they continue those at home and explain that story and talk to a parent or somebody else at home, it can be really quite empowering for them. Also, families feel included in learning. I've got 3 children, and I know whenever I ask my children what they've done at school, all 3 of them just say nothing, or they don't give me a lot of feedback. If I had something, a Picture News topic or the heading, and I could say, oh, what did you think about that? Or ask them the big question, and they're much more likely to have an opinion because it's something they've discussed in school. So it really can help parents as well feel included in that. And then also, it's not about parents needing to know all the answers, but a space for shared discussion. So we always say with Picture News, we always want, whether it's an assembly or a class discussion, or whether it's a conversation that children are having at home about Picture News, it's not about there being a right or wrong answer. And this is why so many children really love the conversations, because unlike other subjects in school where they can say something and it can be wrong, their opinion is valued and matters. And they are sharing that at home with their families, and they're listening and respecting the opinions of other people at home. So it can really enforce those principles and values. And as I say, the quote from the National Literacy Trust: when families regularly talk about current issues, children develop stronger critical thinking skills and feel more confident expressing their views. So that's one of the things that we really hope, if you share your Pitch News resources at home, you can get out of that. And these are some of the barriers, and I'm sure you probably got a few more you could add to this. And it's really difficult and it's a tricky one. And hopefully, through the rest of the session, I will tackle some of these. But these are some of the ones that we hear from our schools and from parents, in terms of why they might not want to do this, or why the barriers that might kind of be preventing them from spending more time on it. So the first one is we don't have time at home. This is probably the most common one and completely relatable and understandable. If you're sending something out, parents might see it as more work, something else on top of other homework that they have and other activities, and just something that they think, I don't want to, I don't have the capacity really to deal with this. And as I say, that's really understandable. What I would say with this is a really good way is, and in your letter, if you want to use our letter to send to parents, you might add things like some suggested times that they might utilise their Pitch News 5-minute discussion. It could be school run, so in the car, or if they're walking to school. It could be, what was Pitch News topic, and it could be, if you know that if you tell the parents when you're generally doing your Pitch News sessions, it could be later that day or the next morning, and you could ask them. It could be when they sit down and have a snack after school. So just a 5-minute period. A really good one is just before bed, because I'm sure anyone who's a parent will know, children have a lot to say just when you're trying to get them to go to sleep and go to bed. So if you ask them about it then, it'd be a really good opportunity to have a really meaningful conversation. And I'm sure they'll have a lot to say about the story and about the topic. I would say when you're all eating together can be a really good one. Or when you're putting your shoes on in the morning, just getting into that habit of asking them about the Pitch News and giving your parents these ideas and these opportunities where they can weave it in. And what tends to happen, what we find tends to happen, is children really like those conversations, so they'll begin to initiate them. And it gives kind of a common ground for parents and children and parents and carers to talk about what's happening. I don't know enough about this topic. We have this a lot from parents and a lot from teachers as well, particularly when it's something that's quite a sensitive news topic. And I think parents, like teachers, sometimes feel that they would rather avoid it if they don't feel comfortable or confident or knowledgeable enough in talking about it. And I think actually what's a really good idea with this is almost to turn it round, and say, and actually be really honest and say, I don't have all the answers. I don't know everything. Let's explore this together. And that, again, that can be quite empowering for the child to feel like and it can really build relationships as well with adults. And then you can explore it together. And again, it's a good opportunity to learn about something together, and talk about it as well. Also, any of these slides, if you want to use any of the content to make your own, because I know some schools have done some really good, a launch session for parents about Pitch News. Again, you might do it as a webinar or invite parents into the hall and just run through some of these slides. So someone just asked where the Spotlight resource is. So the Spotlight resource is at the back of the pack. So it's the last few slides. So it's after the reflection and the slides from the main story. So that is the final 2 slides. Is what Spotlight 1 and Spotlight 2. And then the third barrier we have on here for parents is, what if my child asks a tricky question? So this is linked to the previous one. So we all worry when we're talking to children who quite often might listen and believe and trust everything we say. We worry about saying the wrong thing. Our aim is really is we help provide resources for you and for you to share with parents, with really open-ended questions and language to discuss and explore stories. And also to reassure both you really and parents that it's okay not to know everything. and to be really honest about that. And exploring together is really good role modelling as well for children. So there's some of the barriers and some of the things. As I say, feel free to share those slides. So Pitch News, in terms of where it kind of bridges from home to school, or school to home. An example really for what a school might do is have, and I know lots of you have said Monday assembly is Pitch News assembly. So that's your big what's happening in the world, whole school assembly. Tuesday or Wednesday, you might have 20 minutes. I know lots of schools do this, where they explore the story a little bit further in classes. So the children are able to delve a little bit deeper, and for younger children, we'll have very different conversations with older children, share their thoughts in groups. So this could be a morning activity when the children are coming in, could be after lunch for 20 minutes or at the end of the day. And then what you might do is either add the story to your newsletter, and this could be whenever your newsletter goes out. This could be another thing that you do, or add it to your website or print it off. However you might do it, and send it out. So there might be 3 sort of key ways that you use your Pitch News. So in terms of children, how they might do it, so I've mentioned these. So 5-minute chats at dinner, before bed, on the school run, so quick prompts, and your parents might use the take-home sheets to support that. So whether they're on your website, I know some schools as well have shared them on Class Dojo. If you use Dojo, you can share them on there, and then parents will get them on their phones, and then they can just really quickly share and ask the children about them whenever that arrives as an alert. And really, the bridge is that school discussions spark the home conversations for continuing them. And then those conversations that children have at home deepen children's understanding of themselves, of the world around them, and their confidence as well by talking to somebody else about something that's happening in the world. And what you'll find as well is quite often, because the children have covered the story at school, they'll feel quite knowledgeable and confident about it. So when they go home and talk about it, they're actually educating their parent or carer about that news story, which can be great for their confidence. So these are 2 things. So I mentioned the take home, and so I'll just talk about that. And then we've also got the Pitch News for parents, which I'll also mention. So take home, as I say, this is the key one, which is available as a PDF on the website. And it's the final slide, or one of the slides towards the back of your Pitch News PowerPoint that you receive. So this has the question, the text, and the questions to discuss, and then space. So as I say, utilise that as you feel appropriate. The other image on here, the Pitch News for parents. So we email all of our schools half-termly a newsletter. Termly, we also produce a Pitch News for parents. So this is sent. So if you receive our Pitch News emails, you'll receive this automatically. If you don't and you want to be added to the list, just let me know, because we can email Pitch News to as many people as required from your schools. This is also on the online area. So if you want to go onto the online area, again, if you're unsure of your username and password, feel free to email me after, and I'll let you know. But on here you can see past ones, and if you want to share any of these. But on here we do a recap of stories and some updates and some things to discuss. But that newsletter is specifically written for parents, and as I say, that's a termly newsletter that we produce. So I'm going to show you some real life examples of how our schools. Yes, so Sarita would like a copy of that. So that's not a problem at all. When I email the recording and slides after the session, I'll also email the latest newsletter for parents for you as well. I'll try and remember everything I've mentioned. If I don't, just feel free to just email me back and ask for anything extra that you need. So this is how some of our schools currently share Pitch News, just to give you some real life examples for how you might do that. So the first one is, this is on a school website. So you can see here, there's an explanation about it, which is a really nice piece of text that you could utilise. And then they've got the Pitch News for parents, so the take-home document as PDFs. So they've got those, a record of all of those there. So you can use that way. And then lots of our schools will also share some of their Pitch News work on social media. so on X or on Facebook. And I know some schools are starting to use Instagram and Blue Sky and other platforms, and also obviously on your internal school platforms and Class Dojo as well. So feel free to share them on there. But you can see there, so this school have shared the question, their display, and I like this one. So they've got on their display, they've got an agree, explain, disagree, and then children can add their comments and thoughts and reflections on post-it notes as well. So really good question Romy's asked. Are we allowed to add picture news slides to the website or just the take home? So we have on our website, on our terms and conditions, we've got a detailed explanation of the copyright. But essentially, you're allowed to share, we have permission for you to share everything apart from the big poster and question. So that's the only thing you're not allowed to share on an external facing website. You can add it to a PDF document like this school have done here, but you cannot have the actual image on an external website, just the poster and the image. So any of the other slides you're allowed to share, feel free to do that. And you're allowed to share them on social media freely and on Class Dojo, and you're allowed to print them freely. And so it's just the poster and the image on your main, so if it's on your main website, that you're not authorised to share. It is on our website though, so you can also link to our page each week. Some more examples of how schools use it. So this is a lovely one, and this is from last week's, looking at the park run and the junior park run, and there were some nursery children were looking at, and this is a video. I've just got a still of the video, but this was some children that were stretching like different animals. And so they had a video, so a really lovely way of sharing some of the work with parents and some of the things that children are doing. And then this one from Facebook. So a photo and some of the thoughts of their children that they might want to share with parents. Some schools as well will utilise social media to really share their thoughts and opinions and reflections of children for how they might do that. So what you might do is share them in a different way. Then we've got on this one, we've got some more examples. So the newsletter on the right. So this is a good one. So if you look on there's lots of information there. If you look on the bottom right, there's a link to the website and then some information and photos and things as well for how you might use it. So really like seeing that. And if you do, we like being tagged. So I'll put our X handle if you use X. It's help picture. And you can tag us on Facebook as well. And we really love to see all the work that you're doing. And I know some people have done some projects and then tagged in some of the people from the story or some of the charities and things that they've worked with, some of the positive action that they've done. So it can be really powerful in that way. And then these are some examples from our advocate page. So on our website, there is, and it's really, if you're not familiar with it, it's really useful to go and have a little look. We've got a map, and you can see there's pinpoints of all the schools that have become advocate schools. And if you're interested, you can fill in the application on there and request to become an advocate school. But this is where we have people tell us how they're using Pitch News, and they get a little pinpoint on our map. And you can see if there's any local schools to you as well that are using, that are Pitch News advocate schools. So some examples at how, and the benefits really of how you might, I won't read all of these to you, but I'll just leave them on screen for a moment or two. But how you might utilise them and how you can use those resources to build some of the positive links with your families at home. And then a notice board as well is a really good place to share the discussions. And I know one school told us that they had, when they were letting their children out, some of the parents were actually having a conversation without the children about the Pitch News topic. And we hear this a lot as well from teachers in the staff room, sharing their thoughts and responses to the big question. And I know some people as well have, another way you can do it is have a little bit of a Pitch News display on a notice board. So if you've got an external notice board, that can be displayed on there as well. So they've got some great examples there for how children can continue the conversations with their parents at home. Just a few more here as well. So again, hopefully these will give you some ideas for how other schools are using Pictionary, which I know is always really useful. And one school there I've mentioned with Breakfast Club and sharing social media and on their website as well. And for any church schools, I know the collective worship side of the resources as well can be shared as well, and we're more than happy for you to share those with parents. So there's someone's using Class Dojo. Two children read the news to parents on Dojo, so they make a little video recording of the Pictionary that week, and then parents can watch it as a video, which is a really creative way of doing it. We love the variety of topics and the debate that it creates as well. So it's a really good way of utilising those. Okay, so this is the letter that I mentioned. So don't worry about reading this all now in detail. I just wanted to give you a bit of an overview of it so you could see it. This will be emailed to you after as a Word document. I'm more than happy for you to edit this, add your own bits of text, use this as you would like to share with parents. And then again, as I say, this can be printed and shared or utilised in different ways. The quick tips on there as well are really useful. Obviously, you might use it a bit shorter, you might edit it, you might, as I say, you can utilise that as you feel appropriate. And then another useful piece of information, and just let me know in the comments if this would be useful for an example one of these. We were asked quite a lot for essentially really a paragraph of text that you can put on your website to explain what Pictionary is. And we've got a wide variety of these, so I can send across a template one that you can then edit. But I really like this one that mentions lots of the things that Pictionary does. And what you might want to do is personalise it. So say at the start, what you do with Pictionary, how you utilise it in your setting, and then where you're going to share it, how you would like parents to use it, maybe a link to the discussion board, and the things that it does. So things like RSE, British values, protected characteristics, those things that it links in. And if you're a church school, it might be some of your Christian values as well that you include in there. So you might want to have as I say, a Pictionary page on your website, and I will. I know Romy said that would be super useful. That's not a problem. I'll send over an example paragraph for you for how you might utilise that in school. Okay, so what I would like to know at this point is, and this is where I'd really appreciate to hear all your ideas. Do you currently share Pictionary with parents at all in any capacity? So is there anything that you do at the moment? Be really interested to hear. I know I've given quite a few examples there of what some of our other schools do already, but it'd be nice to know what you currently do. Just give you a moment to type in your responses. So Phil says ad hoc, we send it out when relevant. So I know lots of people utilise it in that way. So if it's a story that you think is it either a really important one or one that resonates with your children, it might be one that you send out. Andrew says not at the moment. Hopefully, Andrew, you'll be able to respond to the next question that's on the screen and can hear more about what you're going to do. Romy says, yes, we send home a page about our Pictionary linked with the right. We use it as a right of the week, as a gold rights respecting school. Thank you very much in the newsletter. That's great to hear. Thank you so much. Alex says, not much at the moment, but we hope to. That's good. That's hopefully why lots of you are here to learn lots of the different ways for how you might utilise it. Feel free to carry on typing those into the chat, and then I'm just going to move on to the second part of the question, which is, are there any ideas from today that you plan to use? So anything that you think, that was a really good idea, that's how I'm going to go about it. Because I know I've covered so many different things, and I think sometimes It can feel a lot of information. So sometimes it's quite good to break it down and maybe just think of one way or one small place to start for how you might utilize the ideas and share the resources with parents. So Natalie says, really helpful information with lots of ideas for how we will use moving forward. Yeah, thank you very much. The aim was really to give you lots of different ideas because depending on your children and your community, different things will work in different places, and you'll know much better than I do in terms of what will work and what will work for your families. Andrew says, hoping to be able to send aspects of the resources and set up some links for parents on our website. Definitely want to use the parent newsletter. That's great. And that's definitely something I'll send. I'll send you a copy of straight after this. I've just shared the right and this week's parent page on the news feed. That's great. So obviously, it's something you could do really quickly if you have social media. You can just do some screenshots and then just share them. Somebody can do that every week. I know lots of schools have Pitch News monitors. So if you could utilise, if you have a couple of maybe year 6 children that are able to maybe print some resources or be a reminder for you to add some little bits and where to put them on, or maybe even add a little bit of text to the newsletter for some of the conversations that children had as well. Really good idea. Add something to our website. Yes, I think a website is a really good place to start really with how you might utilize it. We have a page for our rights respecting schools, so it could link really nicely. The other really good thing, it's a bit like, so your website in a way is a bit like a display board. It's really good if you can make it interactive, so it's not a static page, and it's something that people have reason to go back on and check and see the comments. And obviously you could link as well to our discussion board so they can see when they click on that link, it's always going to be the most up-to-date story for parents to see. Especially outlining how we use it and the expectations we have for parents. Definitely like the discussion board too. That's great. I would like a page on the website, so the wording to support would be great. Yeah, of course, I will definitely send that over for you. Lots of great ideas. For example, website link to promote parental engagement. And then Phoebe says, I love the collective worship of the assembly. Perfect for my school. Thank you. Gail says, probably a section on the weekly newsletter, as no doubt some children will go home and mention it. Yeah, as I said at the start, that was why we introduced the take home part. So it was all on one place for you to share, because and what we always find is that because the stories are so varied, it's different children that will go home and talk about completely different topics and stories. So it's different things will resonate with different children depending on their experiences. So yeah, it's nice for parents as well sometimes to be given a bit of a heads up for what the children will be coming home and talking about as well. So it can be really useful for that. Just see if there's any more that I've missed on there. Oh, Paul says, definitely going to add a newsletter and a website page. Brilliant idea. Yeah, thank you very much. I'm glad that lots of those ideas are going to be useful. And what we always hope is that it doesn't become too onerous for you or for parents. So it's just something that can just be embedded as part of a weekly routine, and something that both you and your families, so the children and their parents and families at home, will get a lot out of, and the skills that they'll develop from having these conversations regularly will be really powerful. And we always say with Pitch News, it's as much as learning from what's happening in the world as it is about it. So it's all of the big picture things that we hope to get out of it. Does anybody have any ideas for how they would like to launch it in school? So I know I mentioned that you might do a webinar, so you might use some of these slides, or you might launch Pitch News for Parents with a letter, or how you might go about doing that. One idea that I know a school had was they actually had a couple of children lead a session where they introduced Pitch News, what it was, and they were able to talk about it really confidently, because obviously they've been having their Pitch News sessions weekly, and they were able to really clearly explain to parents what Pitch News is, how it works, and how they can continue some of those conversations at home, and some of the ways that they will do that. So that's another idea for how you might do that as well. Jenny says, I would love to have an assembly, but might be a webinar. So you could do an online session. I know some schools as well, if you use YouTube or any other video sharing, or if you use Facebook, you could create a video, or the children could create a video just introducing it, that you could maybe even share on something like Class Dojo, just as a really engaging way to introduce the resources. And children are really good at putting presentations together as well. So if you do have Pitch News monitors, or if that's something you're thinking of getting, that can be a great way of doing that. I think I've read everyone's comments and things they're going to do on there. Natalie says, sorry, I have to go. Thank you so much. We'll be expanding our use to parental engagement. Oh, you're very welcome. And as I say, I will send everything over that we've covered today. So that's the end. That was good timing, Natalie. That's the end of my input in terms of the content from the session. But we've got time for any questions, and there can be questions linked to parental engagement, how you use the resource, or anything just more widely with Picture News that you'd like to know, or any thoughts or ideas. Feel free to share them now. But as I say, you will get a copy of the recording, you'll get a copy of the slides, and I'll send some of the other bits as well that I've mentioned, including the letter and the paragraph for your website. I'll just give you a couple of minutes if you've got any thoughts or questions that you would like to ask before we leave. Mark says, how many times do most schools use Picture News per week? So it varies quite a lot. So I would say probably the biggest thing is how long you've had it for. So a lot of our schools, when they first start, I would say I wouldn't try and do too much straight away. So you might want to, the best way really is to embed Picture News resources in a weekly assembly. So you might have a Monday assembly, which is Picture News, what's happening in the world. And then from that, what you might do is build on maybe a 20-minute session in classes, where each class can continue some of those conversations and utilise them that way. And then you can build on your take home and sending the resources home and introducing the resources for parents. And we do quite a lot of really popular training on child-led assemblies, where children can actually run the Picture News sessions. So that can be another really great way to utilise the resources. And I know somebody mentioned floor books as a way of recording, and displays, so they can really complement as well your Picture News sessions that you're doing. And as I say, interventions, they're really useful for speaking and listening, for children learning English, can be utilised in that way as well. But yeah, thanks for that question. Alex says, thank you very much. Lots of brilliant ideas to take away. Thank you very much. That's great. I'll just give you another minute in case you've got any other questions. But if you need to dash off, I'm sure you've got lots of other things to do. Please feel free to leave at this point. But thank you so much to everybody for joining us, and thank you so much for all your interaction and ideas. And thank you again to everyone that's here now that was able to join us live. Because I know you only had a couple of days' notice of this one, so I really appreciate you joining us. Thank you very much. I will email everybody within the next half an hour with all the things that I've mentioned. And then any questions at all or anything else you need to know, please just email. You can reply with that. But there is a lot of information as well on the online area and on the discussion board. Thank you very much. Thank you for your lovely messages. And I can't see any questions. So I'll end the session now. But thank you very much, everybody, and I hope you have a lovely evening.